We're joined now by economist Dr. Onuoha. Good to see you. First, let's look at what's happening. The CBN has come, told the country in its meeting this time to talk about the interest rate. And of course, people are also talking about inflation. Perhaps sometimes there's need for us to break it into fine details so that people can understand where we stand at the moment.
Thank you very much for having me on your program. First and foremost, it is the responsibility of the central bank through their MPC meetings to review most of those issues, which they do time after time and to get the nations functional. But the question we ask is, 3 consecutive times you've been on the increase. And that 3 consecutive times actually put us in a quarter. And you will also realize that within that quarter that we're discussing, which is the first quarter of this year, that the GDP of the nation has moved from 3.5 to 2.31, which means the GDP is falling down. So what is the effect of this rise? And you also look at it from another point and says, how did we come about NPR to even exist in our financial institutions? NPR was created by the CBN as of 2006 during Soludo period, after the consolidation of the banks. That consolidation created those instruments to be created and those platforms. And there was a key target for having NPR being regulated by CBN so that the cost of borrowing will be controlled. If you are now the one increasing the cost of borrowing, I wonder what you want us to do, how you want us to relate to it. Because the cost of borrowing also affects the cost of manufacturing, also affects the cost of goods in the market. And it may sound, whichever way you look at it, look at the inflationary rate, you see how the inflation has gone to all-time 17 years high, which is now 22 and above. So ordinarily, when I listen to the CBN report, it says, oh, they voted, they agreed. Come on, can we put it out?
So what exactly have we been doing wrong, especially the managers of the economy, whether you're talking about the central bank and what have you? What exactly have we been doing wrong? Because the CBN governor also points at the global headwinds and how it's affected, where we are. How much of this really could have been avoided if we had done the right things internally? Okay.
You see that from that global perspective, they are easily to say, oh, the Ukraine war, the COVID recessions, and put it up. Now, taking it from that point, and you look at how are other countries recovering from this COVID period, how are these countries recovering from the, how are they able to manage the Ukraine war, you begin to see they are doing things differently. And what are they doing differently, which you definitely need to know about. Now, before you do this, you must pay attention to what your capital market is saying, because this is where the lending takes place. You're going to borrow from there, you're going to sell your treasury bills or your bonds comes from there. For the past 8 months, you can see that the investment climate has been on a straight line, means it's not going up, it's not going down. Why is it on that straight line? Your government is on transition. Once you're on a transition, investors withhold. They want to see the next government, they want to see the next policies. Being on that transition, it's not a good time to even think about raising NPR apart. No country will be on transition and you're increasing the interest rate to capital because the capital is not even coming in at this point in time. So you look at the situation of your country and look at how you want to manage it and manage it effectively. So for me, it is not the right time, it's not a good decision, it could have been something different. Because at NPR always look at it from that point. What happened for the liquidity ratios of the banks? Are they having more money to borrow to people? They are not. You are restricting the liquidity ratio. Why didn't it affect it? You've kept those one constant. Bank will collect money from the depositors, and you're liquidating up to 30% of the liquidity ratios. It means they are trading with 30% of their capital to cover the other 70% that is not available to them. So it becomes difficult to deal with.
And again, in that difficulty, you've just explained another difficult situation for the CBN. Speaking of which, the transition period, which is an 8-month, period that has been that has seen us on a straight line.
Yeah.
And you say this is not the right time because we know that the MPR is a baseline interest rate in an economy. So should the CBN, even though this is looking at another quarter, have waited till after the inauguration to perhaps wait more before it comes up with something?
that have been a good time.
First, the next MPC meeting coming up is on July. So why not wait for May 29 to come and pass, and we'll move into June and July, and we'll see the stability of it. If they didn't want to do anything, they would have just maintained the rates straight, and let's come out of it. You know, we're on a transition, there's nothing to change, let's go to. But the indices behind it is not clearly obvious. First and foremost, you're coming from your first quarter where you actually created a crisis, a cash crisis. You created a cash crisis by your swapping currency. Your currency swap absolutely has not taken anything. You made the domestic dealers, the artisan traders too, they were forced to sell their goods at close to no price. At close to no price. You see somebody that has 10 tubers of yam, because he need cash, he will sell that 10 tubers of yam that is worth 10,000 naira at 5,000 or even less than that. We are still coming out of that. And so capital, availability of capital is not there.
But in spite of all of this, I mean, based on the figures that we're seeing here, it seems there were growths recorded. Whether you're talking about the service sector that grew by 4.35%, the agriculture, minus.
You can't say the agriculture.
No.
It didn't grow.
No, it was
I'll
minus.
give you
Actually,
the service sectors, the telecom sectors.
Minus 0.90% in the agri sector. Industry sector, 0.31%.
Okay. Now you take it from that point. From the service sector, from the telecom sector, you saw growth because people were now forced to dive into the electronic transfers and this. That helped that industry grow. On the service sectors, the people were constrained and they were forced to into that. But let's go into the real manufacturing. Remember, the two sectors that look like there was growth in that is because our crude production moved from 900,000 to 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. In this period, we are calculating. That over 400,000 barrels of crude that was available to be sold contributed to that growth. And every other sector that consumed that availability also affected the crude. But the demand that is on the agricultural sector, you can see the sectors that it didn't affect. Yeah. But the point, when you take the aggregate, you now see the growth you saw here were overeaten by the depreciation that happened on that end. That is why the GDP was able to move from 3.5 to 2.31. Yeah. If the growth were even and cut across everything, you will see the GDP maybe move from 3.5. And the worst part of it is that I can bet you we may not be able to hit our December GDP of 3.5 by next December.
I was just going to ask you what
we may not be able to. We may not be able to.
And now he's talking about these concerns on the back of wrong timing. We're also looking at the big one, revoking licenses of 132. I see you chuckle on that. 132 microfinance banks, 3 finance companies, and 4 primary mortgage banks. What does this do to perhaps, rural banking penetration?
If you look at the revocation of the license, it's primary duty of CBN. The banking and other financial institutions at 2020 give them that right to do that. The power is invested on the CBN governor to do that. And what they did has been fully gazetted in the Federal Gazette schedule, so it's fully. Now, you now look at it from that point, is their right to do it. But why did you do it? There's a question. The reason they gave is based on non-performance, is based on non-compliance, is based on violation. These are the reasons they gave.
Yes.
Okay. Non-performance. Can we ask why they didn't perform?
That's a question.
That's a question. Why they didn't perform?
Yeah, do we know why?
If you have investigated it, first and foremost, every bank has a reserve deposit with you. Did they eat up their reserve? We should dig deep into it. But if they do, you are the regulators. You don't just wake up and say you're revoking license. Take this. We are talking about 132 microfinance banks. I need you to understand the implication. If every of these microfinance banks was employing 100 persons in them. So you have released 100 times 132
into the unemployment
market. You created it. What is your measure? Did you make provisions where these people will be paid unemployment compensation for the next 1 year or 1 year and 8 months, or even 8 months until they get something? And you're talking about where schools just resumed. Some of them have children that want to return back to school. So you have added to more children out of school by this act. So the implications are very obvious. So we
very quickly, in 30 seconds, if you can, I mean, what are the factors that could have led to this microfinance banks, finance companies not being able to meet up their obligations?
Okay. There are big commercial banks that are now meeting obligation as we speak today. And when banks don't meet up financial obligations, what CBN do is management takeover. They don't revoke the license. Why didn't we do that in this microfinance bank? Management takeover. You saw them running low. You saw them not. So the management is wrong. So you do management takeover. That would have been a sure answer to this. So that you avoid this. Management takeover is a mechanism that banks, CBN used to. You must have heard when it was used even in Union Bank, in these banks. Yes, so.
Right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much. Onuoha is an economist helping us to really simplify all of this. We're better educated than before the conversation started.